And I'm delighted to be able to bring you this video message on the occasion of all the Maryland pro-lifers who are marching in the Maryland March for Life on the 27th of March of 2025. Thank you for participating in this particular march, or at least participating in it online. Thank you for all you do in the pro-life movement. I want to bring you the greetings of my entire team. And that includes, of course, our priests, our deacons, Janet Marana, who co-founded Silent No More, and the Silent No More campaign has been active in Maryland over all these years, as well as Dr. Alveda King, who's part of our team, and many, many others. We thank you for your commitment. We continue to pledge to work side by side with you, as we have done for so many years. And we know what it's like, don't we? Working in a very pro-abortion state, not only pro-abortion, but anti-parental rights, also the threats against life at the end of life, and the medically vulnerable, and physician-assisted suicide, and euthanasia, this whole culture of death. Brothers and sisters, you and I know what it means to stand against the culture of death in a state which usually lands on the side of that culture of death in terms of public policy. I grew up in New York. My ministry started in California. I know what it is to labor against the headwinds in these pro-abortion areas. But we march today, and you give this witness today in this gathering and in the work that you do all year long, based on a simple fact. When we stand up for the sanctity of life at every stage and under every condition, we're not doing so because that sanctity of life applies only in one area or in another. We are not content that some states will protect and recognize that right to life and others won't. We're saying by this march today that the right to life applies in every state of this great nation. In fact, we are claiming that right to life for every state and every square mile and every square inch of this country. And we will not let up, and we will not turn back, and we will not slow down until that right to life is secure and protected on every square inch of this sacred ground of this nation that God has given us. And so I commend you for your perseverance. Never let up, never stop. You have many great leaders that exemplify this, and I just want to mention before I get to my main message for you today, some of the friends that we have had in Maryland. I think, for example, of Congressman Andy Harris. I want to salute him. He has been a friend for a long time, and I thank him always for reminding me that it was a talk I gave on one of my programs on EWTN, Mother Angelica's network, many years ago, when Andy was considering whether or not to run for the state legislature. And when I talked about the fact that political life, that service in public office is indeed a vocation, he has told me that helped him to say yes to God's plan for him to run for office in the first place. And then, of course, after having served in the Maryland legislature, he has been serving with distinction in the United States Congress. Andy, God bless you, and it is great to see that red dot, if you will, among the Maryland congressional delegation. It's a happy relief from the likes of Steny and Jamie and all the rest. God bless the perseverance of Maryland Republicans, Maryland pro-lifers. I'd likewise also like to acknowledge Ernie Olhoff, who served for a long time, as so many of you know, in the leadership of Maryland Right to Life, as well as his work with the National Right to Life Committee and also with the United States Catholic bishops in the National Committee for a Human Life Amendment. He has a long record of service, and I mention him because he was given an award when we had the March for Life prayer service. We at Priests for Life organize the prayer service on the day of the National March for Life every year. And we give a pro-life award, several awards, and this year we honored Ernie Olhoff for his many decades of leadership. So God bless Maryland for having not only leaders like him, but so many of you now whom I know, with whom we worked in this past election cycle against Question 1, that terrible amendment. I'm going to say a word about that. Thank you for your partnership and your leadership. Question 1, which unfortunately passed, gives and places in the Maryland Constitution something that was never intended to be there. As a matter of fact, the Dobbs decision pointed out in 2022 that nowhere in the history of either the federal Constitution or of any of the state constitutions was it ever imagined that there would be a right to abortion. And yet, Question 1 has put this right to reproductive freedom, that's abortion plus many other things, and defines it to include, and this is the point I want to zero in on, brothers and sisters, the ability to make and effectuate decisions to prevent, continue, or end one's own pregnancy. Now, we know the moral absurdity of saying that there is a right to kill the innocent. But what I want to point out here is something that in this Maryland amendment is explicit and in fact is implicit in all the other pro-abortion amendments that have passed throughout the country, and that is, if you're going to talk about reproductive freedom, that's not just the freedom to end your pregnancy. As the Maryland amendment says explicitly, that's also the right to continue your pregnancy. And on that we should focus, because we can use this amendment as a boomerang against the abortion industry. What do I mean? People don't get abortions because of freedom of choice. They get them because they feel they have no freedom and no choice. Recently at our Priests for Life headquarters, we had a 3-day strategy meeting of dozens of national pro-life leaders. We had about 60 leaders here. And over the course of those 3 days, we heard from some of the most prominent, experienced pro-life researchers in the country. One of them, Dr. David Reardon, presented some of his latest research about how unfree mothers are when they quote-unquote choose abortion. It's usually not their choice. We looked at coerced abortion. Dr. Reardon, analyzing this question of whether when somebody has an abortion, she's really making that choice, uncovered that whether you're talking about outright coercion from somebody who's threatening her, maybe a parent, or the boyfriend, or somebody else in her life, or an employer who's threatening to fire her, or somebody who's threatening to throw her out of school, some kind of circumstance or person that is coercing her, or if you simply look at it from the point of view of, do you really want to do this? Does this represent your preferences? Does this correspond to your values and your beliefs? Normally, the answer is no. And Dr. Reardon puts a number to it. He says, if you ask how many who are getting abortions are doing so against their better judgment, against their own freedom, the number is 60%. 60% of those who are getting abortions are not doing it because of freedom of choice, but because they feel they have no freedom and no choice. Now, brothers and sisters, add to that the fact that the abortion industry doesn't care about this. It's contrary to their profit motive to screen for coercion. You know, I was very close to Norma McCorvey, the Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade, who remained pro-life, by the way, until the day of her death. I spoke to her on the day of her death. And Norma began, while she was still on the other side of the fence, began to get in trouble with the abortion facility for which she worked for a while in Dallas, because she was noticing that these women were not acting with freedom. They were acting against their better judgment, and she would ask them. She realized how uninformed they were about the abortion procedure, and she would start asking them, do you know what they're going to do to your baby? Let me explain to you what this abortion is. And of course, many of these women, on hearing her explanation, would say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. And the abortion facility noticed that because of Norma, they were starting to lose business, and they said to her, you're supposed to be helping us, not hurting us. And she said, oh, I thought we were supposed to be helping the women. Brothers and sisters, if we insist that the abortion facilities screen these women, these mothers, for coercion, we can end most of the abortions in Maryland and in the United States. Based on the insights of Dr. Reardon, the experience of all of us, I'm the director of Rachel's Vineyard and pastoral director of Silent No More throughout the country and around the world, and we hear it every day. People who have suffered from the abortion procedure and say, I didn't want to do it. This was against my freedom. I didn't know what was going on. Brothers and sisters, if we insist that these abortion facilities make sure before they do this procedure that she is really freely choosing it, most of these procedures will not take place. And when you have a constitutional amendment like Maryland has that now says it is your constitutional right explicitly to continue your pregnancy, if that's what you want to do, then nobody has any business forcing her otherwise. That's why our friend Alan Parker of the Justice Foundation has created the Center Against Forced Abortion. Look that up as well as Dr. David Reardon's research. The Center Against Forced Abortion provides a lot of resources for you and me to say to parents, to say to doctors, to say to the abortion facility, to say to anybody in that mother's life that they cannot force her to have the abortion, otherwise they're violating all kinds of laws and can be in a significant amount of trouble. We are working as lights in a dark state. We are working as beacons of the culture of life, whether in the legislature, and people like Andy Harris and the pro-life groups, leaders like we have seen in Ernie Olhoff and your current leadership, whether it's in the lives of each and every one of you marching for life today in Maryland. We are lights in the darkness, a darkness that will not overcome it. Brothers and sisters, be active also as you have these last couple of weeks in the legislative session of the Maryland General Assembly. It ends on April the 7th, as many of you know. Be involved in the activities of the Maryland state groups and the legislative priorities. One thing in this arena, and it's connected to the point I just made, we should continue to insist that Maryland report its abortion statistics to the Centers for Disease Control, like 47 other states regularly do. Maryland, together with California and New Hampshire and occasionally some other places, do not report their statistics. Now, it is voluntary for the states to bring these statistics, but why do most of them do it? Because unless we have the statistics of how many abortions are happening and what impact it's causing, and different states keep different details about the abortions that are happening and the conditions under which they're happening, then we can't be claiming to be concerned about women's lives and women's health and the health of our society. And even some of those who say they're pro-choice, but they're concerned because abortion's not a good thing. Wouldn't it be great if we could help people choose life instead? How can you begin to solve problems like this if you don't even know the extent of the problem? You don't even know how many of these abortions are happening. We also know in our pro-life educational work, all of us, that very often it's simply the sheer numbers of abortions or the numbers of later term abortions that make people think twice about whether this is a good idea. So many who think that they're pro-choice on abortion are thinking so because they think it only happens rarely, or it's only happening to save people's lives. It's the statistics that are our starting point for exposing the problem, and it's exposing the problem that is our starting point to solving the problem. Brothers and sisters, let's insist that Maryland report its abortion statistics to the Centers for Disease Control. That's one of many legislative initiatives that are on the table right now and that together we can advance in the state of Maryland. We at Priests for Life pledge our collaboration with you, as we have had over very many years, to continue working for life, to continue advancing the culture of life, to continue pushing back against the darkness of the culture of death. It's a quote that's been attributed to Osama bin Laden when he was asked why he thinks the terrorists win. He said this: "We win because we love death more than you love life." That's the mindset of a heartless terrorist. That's the mindset of the people who flew airplanes into buildings in this great nation of freedom. Brothers and sisters, may it never be true that they love death more than we love life. As we march today, we are not only giving witness to all around us that we love life, we're bearing witness to one another within this movement, and we're bearing witness to ourselves. By expressing our convictions outwardly in a beautiful march, we are strengthening those convictions inwardly, and we are coming to the end of this day, we are coming to the end of this march more convinced than ever, more ready than ever to proclaim from the rooftops that yes, we love life more than they love death. Let it be so. Let us rejoice in the call to love life. Let us worship the God of life, and let's trust in His providence as our founders did to bring us to the victory of His truth and His law. Thank you, brothers and sisters of Maryland. We are with you, and together we will see the day of victory. Pro-life leader Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Thank you.